the last thing I'd like to speak on is we've talked about the light of Christ. We've talked about the Holy Ghost. When we started this episode, we talked about the value of understanding the doctrine so that we can apply it in our lives. And I'd like to speak a little bit about how can we use this knowledge of the light of Christ and the Holy Ghost in our daily lives? How can that bring immediate benefit to us? And I've got some concepts here that I believe I got from a John Pontius book. But it's a way of explaining how the light of Christ and the Holy Ghost operates within us in a way that was very insightful to me, and I think about it all the time, and it's something that has brought me awareness when I'm in situations of trial or of temptation, or when I'm trying to seek discernment about something or revelation. It has brought me a lot of insight, and his explanation is that we've all got voices in our head.
It's sad but true. There's no denying it.
We're all a little bit crazy. No.
Also true.
But there are multiple voices enticing us at all times. The Book of Mormon teaches this. And the trick is to be able to discern or recognize who those voices are, where they are coming from. So the first voice that's in our head is our own personal voice. That's the I voice. That's the me voice. Anytime you're pondering or wondering, saying, I wonder if, should I, that's you. You can easily recognize that voice because it doesn't know a lot. It's always thinking and trying to work things out. It's always trying to figure stuff out, right? It's insecure. And it's important first to recognize that is your voice, because that voice is influenced by the light of Christ, the truth that you already have, and that is your own personal discernment. So you can, when you're pondering and you're have that insecurity, you can rely on discernment that you already have, and that guides us in how we think about things. So we always have our own voice going on, and it's very important to recognize that's the I voice. That's the active voice that you have. There's a verse in James 1:14. It says, "But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed." Alternate translation of lust is motivations. So every man is tempted and drawn away by his own motivations. Okay, so that shows that our own voice, our own motivations, right, can direct us to a degree, good and bad, right? There's that natural man, and there's the truth and light that we've accumulated. So we have our own voice. The second voice in our head that's enticing us is the voice of the devil, or the tempting spirits.
The necessary opposition.
The opposition.
Yep.
Well, how do we recognize those voices? Well, obviously, they speak to us things that are contrary to the Word of Christ. And what's interesting about them is they will not shut up.
They're persistent, if nothing else.
And there's lots of them. So the example he gives is, let's say your personal voice, you say to yourself, "Oh, should I go get my family together for family prayer?" Okay, so that's your voice. It's a thought, it's a pondering that you have. Well, the tempting spirits, that voice, they're going to begin to give you every reason in the world of why you should not do that. Oh, it's too late.
And it's immediate.
It's immediate.
Yeah.
It's too late. The kids are already in bed. Oh, I got to get up early tomorrow. They won't shut up. There's lots of them. They have experience in this, and they will give you every reason not to do that thing which is good.
Yep.
And this is it. The importance of this is that once you know this, it's very easy to recognize when it's happening.
And to discern it.
It's very easy to discern that when you're having those many reasons over and over again of why you should not do that thing that is good, you are being enticed.
Yeah. And it's important to note as well that the greater the light of Christ within us, the closer we are to the Holy Ghost, and we've cultivated righteous living, this temptation and opposition that these voices provide to us, they will take what they can get. The closer we are to the Father, their opposing voice will be maybe something that's not a big deal, maybe very subtle, something that's very easy to dismiss and say, yeah, I'm still going to do what I know I need to be doing, right? It's a lot easier to dismiss those voices, right, when we're not living righteously.
Well, the temple teaches us that as we live our covenants, they lose their
power over us, right? And that's exactly, we've become fortified. The armor of God is being applied to us so that they'll still, their role is eternal. They're still going to tempt where they can, whatever chink is in our armor, right? They're going to tempt where they can, and the greater the greater the light we have, the stronger the truth is within us, the less impactful that temptation, that opposition might be. It's still there, and we should still ignore it. However, as we become lazy, become apathetic, as we move away from that greater light, those opposing voices become more and more deceitful, more crafty. They get a lot. It's a lot more difficult to discern what is the right choice.
And as our light dims, we question it less.
Yes, correct. We give in and follow those opposing voices much more frequently.
But that was a very profound way of putting it, that those tempting voices, they won't shut up, right?
Yeah.
They will give you every reason in the world not to do that thing that is good, or to do that thing which is not good.
Yeah.
And I have once it was presented to me in that way, it's so incredibly easy to discern it. You see it happening in real time, like you can witness it and realize what's going on. And right, the Book of Mormon says that it's essential. The fall was essential. Opposition is essential because man must be enticed both ways, and therefore we have agency. That's how the plan works. So on one side we have these tempting voices, and then on the other side we have the voice of the Holy Ghost. This voice is the still small voice, and it is not going to coerce you into doing anything, but it will tell you what you should do. The Holy Ghost will tell you all things that you should do. That's the promise. So in that scenario where the question was, oh, should I get my family together for family prayers? The Holy Ghost is going to confirm that you should. That voice will say, you should get your family for family prayers. Or often this conversation may have started with that voice to begin with a prompting of the Holy Ghost saying, call your family for family prayers. Right? That it'll start with that feeling, that voice coming to you. And it's generally going to happen once. Right? The Holy Ghost is not going to keep trying to convince you to do what is good. It will give you what you should do, and it will respect your agency. It will not try to coerce you or convince you. It will respect you as an individual, as a child of God with agency. It will tell you what you should do, and it will give you your space to act. And every time that you follow that voice and that prompting, you're blessed.
We have examples that oftentimes we'll hear in the church or just within Christianity, where a mother or a father, in particular a mother, would be laying in bed and all of a sudden they receive out of nowhere a very clear, distinct prompting. One of their children is in trouble and they just know it instinctively. They don't know why, right? That's a very dramatic example of how the Holy Ghost, you would know something is coming from the Holy Ghost because it's clearly not internal. It is something that is outside of you and that you're receiving and probably doesn't make sense initially. But then there's ones that are a lot more subtle. How many times are you at church and all of a sudden you see somebody that you've never really talked to, you don't really know, but you feel within you, I need to go talk to or introduce myself to that person, or I need to tell that person something as simple of, hey, your testimony today really touched me. It really meant a lot to me. Something like that is outside of yourself. It's very subtle, may not seem like a big deal, and is usually pretty easy to pass off and to ignore if you want to. Those can be just as impactful and important, if not for you, for the person that the Holy Ghost is trying to touch as well and trying to minister to as well. And those promptings are the ones that I think are usually received more often, but they're a lot easier to dismiss as well when it's the other people around that the Holy Ghost is seeking to have us minister to. And we just say, I'll talk to that person next time, or I'll mention something to that person later. And you don't realize the chain of events that the Holy Ghost may be trying to set in motion, that you're denying or stopping before they've had a chance to really come to fruition.
And I've learned that the promptings of the Holy Ghost, 99 times out of 100, maybe much more, they're going to be small and simple things. It's going to be, go talk to that person, give this person a call, go visit this person, bear your testimony about this thing. They're going to be small and simple things that you still need to do. You wouldn't have done them otherwise on your own, because maybe that person is just off the beaten path. You wouldn't be by there ever on your own, whatever case may be. The Holy Ghost will prompt us to do small and simple things, and through them, miracles happen. There are so many plans in motion for each one of God's children that the Holy Ghost can direct you through small and simple promptings to interact and be there at the right time or to say the right thing that can make a difference. Right? That's true ministering, is having that prompting, knowing better the people around you, being aware of your situation, and then being able to understand, to hear, and receive those simple little promptings that are generally pretty easy things that you can do. They might not seem like some great big revelation from the heavens, but it will produce miracles, if not for you, for the person you're prompted to serve.
The interesting thing is, for you and I, and obviously we're close enough that we talk about these things, but we've gotten into a habit of, when we receive these revelations, these inspirations from the Holy Ghost, we start to write them down. And we'll act on them. And we will not have any clue or any immediate, cause and effect. We have no idea what that thing we did or the follow-up we performed on that prompting did, but we write them down. Mm-hmm. And we're able to go back 3 months, 6 months later.
I write down that I received it, and then I write down that I acted on it.
Yes. And then you don't recognize until months later that something you acted upon ended up having an extremely profound effect on somebody's life or on your own life. You know, you do something today, nothing seems to come of it.
Having
and
that
you-
record makes it very clear when miracles happen.
Yes.
You can witness it.
Yes, you can witness miracles in your life. Write it down when you receive an impression. When you act on it, write down what you did. And sometimes you will immediately see the fruits of responding to that prompting from the Holy Ghost. But many times not. However, you have it written down. A lot of times I like to just look back and say, you know, what did I receive? What did I do? And all of a sudden, you'll reread it and you realize, I had no idea that was going to have such an impact, but now I see why the Spirit was leading me to do that thing, you know. And so it's imperative that we outwardly demonstrate to the Lord that we are actively listening to the Holy Ghost and that we are following up on and acting on those inspirations that were given.